What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Today is January 20th, 2020, and if you are listening or watching, you are listening or watching to the Marcelin Brothers podcast. It is the new year, and I figured today we haven't done a Dear Ophelia series in a while. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's go back to focusing on my daughter, Miss Ophelia, and let's do a Dear Ophelia podcast. So, lots of stuff has changed since the last time we have done a Dear Ophelia podcast. And publicly, one of the things that Ophelia learned is that Ophelia is going to be a big sister. Yes, that is right. Ophelia, you found out about a couple of weeks ago that you're going to be a big sister. So we will most likely start talking more about what you will be doing in order to be a big sister, to be an awesome big sister. So stay tuned to some of the future episodes when we talk about that. Well, I guess let's talk a little bit about that now. So, before we start talking about what today's lesson that I want to teach you, I want to talk to you about when we first shared with you that you're going to be a big sister. So, Ophelia, you were, I think, pretty excited that you're going to become a big sister at the time. We were very fortunate because you have a little nephew named Zaire who is almost a couple of years younger than you. And I remember the first time you had an opportunity to meet Zaire and to hold Zaire, you held him like he was a little doll. You were all excited. And I think that was the first time your mother and I realized that you would become such a great big sister because you are always used to playing with people who are older than you, but seeing the way that you reacted towards him as being somebody younger than you made us feel a lot better that you're going to be a great big sister. So what's funny is when we would ask you if you wanted to be a big, if you wanted to have a little brother, or if you wanted to have a little sister, I think 9 times out of 10 you would say you wanted a little brother. But when we realized and we found out that you would be having a little sister, you started being very excited. And every single time we would make sure that you saw mommy and we would tell you to say hi to your little sister in mommy's stomach, you would always go to mommy's stomach and you would always say hi. So I think you've warmed up to the idea of having a little sister. And we are so looking forward to seeing how you and your future little sister are going to be able to bond with each other. So, with that being said, let's do some more lessons. So, those of you who are new to the Dear Ophelia series, I use this as an opportunity to be able to talk to Ophelia and to share some advice with her on things that she'll need to be able to understand so that as she becomes older, she will be a great, mature young woman. So, we started looking at this Women's Day article. The name of the article again is 8 Lessons a Father Can Teach His Daughter. And we are actually going to be talking about lesson number 7. But just to do a really, really quick recap before we get to lesson number 7, I wanted to make sure that we were able to go back and talk about the previous 6 lessons that we discussed during this series. So, for those of you who are interested and want to read about this article on yourselves, the name of the article is 8 Lessons a Father Can Teach His Daughter. Discover the unique guidance only a dad can give his little girl. And again, this was an article that was written by Alexandra Gigas. So, the lessons that we went over before we went over today's lesson is number 1, embrace your assertiveness. Number 2, seek out healthy relationships. Number 3, strive for success. Number 4, be self-sufficient. Number 5, car maintenance isn't just a male thing. And we are now going to be taking a look at lesson number 6, which is accept responsibility when you're wrong. So let's go read about the article and let's discuss. This can be a tough one, even for adults, because it entails not only admitting you were wrong, but also correcting your course of action. A great way to model this kind of acceptance is to practice what you preach. If she sees you manning up or acting with integrity, that's one of the great reflections you want to see in your child, Percy says, noting that when his daughters come up to him with a problem, he doesn't give them a solution. Instead, he helps them figure out where they went wrong so that they can come up with their own resolution. Allowing her to accept responsibility for a mistake by encouraging her to fix it herself instead of swooping in and solving the problem helps her figure out how to own up to the good and bad things that happen along the road of life. So, this is a point that hits straight to home because I think as a parent, sometimes, we may subconsciously have the adage of do as I say and not as I do. And your mother and I, when we discussed in what our process is for raising you, a lot of that stuff is making sure that one, you are aware of what is right and wrong, and two, trying to help you be accountable for what you do by explaining and teaching this to you. And three, again, because of the strong woman that you're growing up to be, making sure that you're figuring out this stuff on your own. So one of the ways that we try to ensure that you're accepting responsibility when you're wrong is we've started to go through a process where we discipline you by having you go to timeout. And one of the lessons and processes that we use when we're doing timeout is one, we'll have you go into your timeout mat. We'll have you look at the wall. We'll give you a little bit of time to concentrate, to relax, to think about what you did. And then after you do that for a while, then what we do is we'll come to you. We'll say, Ophelia, come here. Let's talk about what you did wrong. And we'll explain what you did wrong. We will make sure you understand that it is a serious matter. We'll explain to you what you did wrong and why it's wrong. But we always make sure that at the end of our conversation that we end it with a hug and that either your mother and I tell you that we do love you, so that we're trying to focus on the behavior that you're doing versus you yourself as an individual. And what I find a lot of times is, you know, the reason why we'll have to put you in timeout is because you weren't paying attention, you weren't listening, you weren't concentrating. And again, a lot of times that tends to be closer to the end of the day when you're tired or just when you're not really being able to focus. What we found is that a lot of times this helps reset you and helps you calm down, helps you recenter yourself. And as soon as we get you out of timeout, you're able to focus again. And I think one way that you already have shown to accept responsibility when you're wrong is even before we tell you to go to timeout, we'll ask you, hey, do you feel like you need to go to timeout? And you'll automatically on your own go and give yourself timeout. So I think that's pretty extraordinary as a 2.5-year-old when you've really been able to realize when you've done something right and when you've done something wrong and when you need to help self-regulate yourself. And I think the next part of this article, when it says, allow her to accept responsibility for a mistake by encouraging her to fix it herself instead of swooping in and solving the problem. This is something that you've really been able to do on your own without much coaching for us. You're at the stage right now where, again, you want to do things on your own. You want to do whatever you can to make it right. And it literally is a last resort if you cave in and you ask for help. And I think that's a delicate balance between, like what the article says, when something goes wrong, your mother and I not just swooping in to try to save you, but also allowing you not to be too proud to ask for help. And where is that delicate balance? And that's something that your mother and I, we go through every day when we're with you. But again, you're growing up to be such a smart, intelligent, beautiful, brave child. And that is what, we look forward to seeing you come up. I think another thing that we're working with you right now is you're starting to, understand different stimuli and you're starting to have different feelings and emotions. And one of the things that you're dealing with right now is fear. And I think especially with this section here, how do we help you get over some of the first things that you're afraid of? I know right now one of the bigger things that you're afraid of is fireworks and firecrackers, and I think it's just more of that noise, the sound, and just watching you being able to figure out this huge fear that you have and being able to cope with that so that you're able to fall asleep on your own and making sure that you realize that you can do whatever you want as long as you're mentally strong enough to do that. And it's been a joy and a pleasure just to see how the first few nights when you started being afraid of firecrackers and fireworks, how you didn't want to go to bed by yourself. You had to run and sleep in mommy and daddy's bed, and you wouldn't be able to do anything unless you're with somebody. To now, slowly, gradually, within the last 2 weeks, you're able to go back into your bed, you're able to sleep in your bed. Instead of us being in the room with you in your room for about 30 minutes before we slip away, it's less and less time. And just seeing how the independence is starting to grow and celebrating with you when you are able to go through the night on your own. One of the other things that's been pretty fun lately is just seeing how independent you're coming when it comes to not waiting for somebody to tell you to do something or not. So I think the best experience that I can give is right now we're potty training you. And, for the most part during the day you do fine, but in the evenings you start to struggle. And we have you sleep in a diaper because we don't want you to wet the bed. But what we've been finding out lately within maybe the last 2 or 3 nights is, you yourself, let's say you'll take a nap. All of a sudden you'll have an urge to go use the restroom. You will get up out of your bed because we changed you from the crib to a toddler bed. You'll get out of the crib or the bed. You'll walk over to the bathroom. You'll use the restroom on your own, and then you'll say bye, and then you'll just go back into your room. And you'll do that before you take a nap, and you'll do that before you go to bed. And we've noticed that you haven't really been wetting your diaper like you used to. So, again, just seeing you grow up and becoming more independent, those are some of the things that we are very excited to see from you. And those are some of the traits that you'll need as you will become a great big sister for Amelia. So, again, just to wrap up what we discussed before, accepting responsibility when you're wrong and realizing that in this, you'll be looking to myself and your mother, as well as your uncle and your aunt and the rest of the family. When you see the way that we battle adversity, you see the way when we realize that we're doing something wrong, and we have to make sure we have the courage and the self-esteem and the self-respect to be able to man up to that. We want to make sure that you realize that if something is wrong, you're not afraid to admit it. You take responsibility because that is what is going to allow for you to be a better person. So, Ophelia, I hope you take this advice to heart. I look forward to you listening to this episode one day and asking me, hey, what was I thinking when I was talking to you in this episode? And again, I'm looking forward to seeing you continue to grow up and be that wonderful woman that you're going to be. And hopefully, this is one of the lessons that I'll be able to instill with you. So, hey, that's it. It's been about 13 minutes with these Dear Ophelia series. Again, it's more quick to the point. You see where we are. You see what we're doing in this phase of your life. You're on 2.5. So hopefully this is something that you will find very beneficial for yourself. And also to the rest of my MBP crew, for those of you guys who may be in a similar situation as myself, these are some ideas that you can take to looking at what you're doing with your family. And also, since maybe some of you who may have already had some kids, maybe listening to this and adding some own feedback points to yourself. So that being said, it is 10:21 p.m. I've got to get up early tomorrow morning, but I did want to make sure that I reached out to my MBP crew before I went to bed. So there you go. You heard the announcement. My wife is expecting. The due date's going to be around July, so we're looking forward to having baby number 2. So it's going to be Daddy and the Girls. So if you guys can think of any cool nicknames for the Marceline party of 4, let us know. But with that being said, MBP crew, have a good night. Next time you hear my voice, it'll be back to the normal Marceline Brothers podcast when you'll hear myself along with one or both of my brothers. So with that being said, take it easy. Thank you again. Keep on listening. Keep on subscribing. Hit that like. Share this with your friends. And please provide some feedback so that we know what future lessons you want to hear about on the Dear Ophelia series or for any of the Marson Brother podcast episodes. So with that being said, it is me, myself, and I. We will talk to you later. Hasta mañana. Good night.